Hey Leafs fam, what is up? It's NJ. Thank you very much for subscribing to the Leafs Convo on YouTube. The growth of this podcast, especially on the YouTube platform, has been astonishing. I am humbled personally. I know Mike feels the same way. And we're just so thankful that you've entrusted us to provide you with your Leafs content, commentary, and of course, conversation on what seems like a daily basis because there's so much going on. Speaking of that, the latest podcast up right now, it's burning up. Tons of views, tons of comments, many comments very negative in nature, considering there is a perception emanating from the podcast that we are taking political sides in this whole Trump versus the left, Trump versus the world debate. We are not part of that debate. I use the G7 picture with the faces of Leaf team members and coaching members superimposed on Trump and world leaders to make a point about how Kyle Dubas I tried to make a point about how Kyle Dubas and Mike Babcock might be at odds in terms of what the coach wants when it comes to player acquisitions and what the general manager wants to provide him with when all is said and done. Unfortunately, it was perceived by many of President Donald Trump's supporters as a slight against the president. Look, I have no political affiliation with anyone. I just like people. I have no allegiance to Donald Trump, Justin Trudeau, left, right, whatever. Doug Ford, Andrea Horvath, I don't know. You pick the politician, I have no allegiance to them. You know who I have an allegiance to? You. The people who support this podcast. Leafs fam, hockey world fam. That's what I care about. And while on one hand I'm saying, you know, this is my podcast, this is my creation. I'm doing this my way, or it's not going to be done, and to hell with everybody. I could go that route, but I don't want to offend people or make people uncomfortable who have an affinity for or care for someone that I'm poking fun of based on just novel reasons. So the plan going forward is to avoid any sort of political talk or any political innuendo for the foreseeable future. That doesn't mean that we're not going to call a spade if something crazy happens. But you know, we're going to do our best to not include or tie in any political stories or any political figures into what we generally cover, and that's Maple Leafs and hockey news. So you have that pledge from me. Again, I pledge to you, our listeners, our viewers, our consumers, and you know, whether you are on the left or the right of the political spectrum, that doesn't matter to me, man. I just like good people. And when I make fun of politicians or celebrities or whomever, or myself or Mike, it's just because I'm just trying to get a laugh out of it. You know, we're not here to do shock podcasting, you know. We're just here to try to build a brand, and we want to keep as many people on board as we possibly can, and that's basically about it. I also don't really like to traffic or patrol the comment sections, but when there are personal attacks against Mike or I, you know, they're just uncalled for. We don't need to live in that world, right? And the Russian bots, they come out in full force when you write something or there's a keyword that triggers the bot or triggers the trolls. They're just going to be swept away. At the end of the day, we're here to talk about hockey, and we live and learn from every podcast that we do. You know, I don't mind when people trash us over hockey talk or our hockey perspectives or our thoughts. When it comes to the political stuff, it's unfortunate because the goal and the drive of what we're doing has nothing to do with politics. And when we bring this kind of stuff up, it's because we're just trying to get a laugh out of it. We're trying to instigate a little bit of talk that somehow relates to hockey. And again, when it comes to this picture from the G7 with Donald Trump sitting there and all of these supposed allies looking at him, because there was a Leaf tie-in, Lonnie_Bahanas on Twitter, God bless him, put that picture together. I thought it was funny. And the captions, that's what I was trying to do in terms of generating reaction from our listeners and our viewers. Didn't really work, and I will note it, and we will try to avoid any sort of political driven or divisive commentary or content going forward. In the meantime, Mike Augello and I have another podcast planned for you post Game 6 Marley Stars. Let's hope we are looking back on a Marley season for the history books and they wrap this thing up with a bow, because once all these championships are won, we can truly focus on the journey towards July 1st and all of the talk and all of the hype that surrounds the pre-July 1st free agency period. We love it so much. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Again, thank you so much for your support of this podcast. If you haven't subscribed, or you're thinking about subscribing, or maybe you don't want to subscribe now, considering the fallout from that last podcast, just take a deep breath. That's what we're doing. And let's come back to the conversation table and let's have it revolve around hockey for the most part. Anyway, I've got things to do. Thank you very much for listening. This is the Leafs Convo. Like and subscribe. We'll talk to you soon.